Welcome. In this video, I want to take a moment to talk about the service dog training process and the timeline by way, again, of a intentional interaction-based approach versus the timeline of a bribery-based service dog training approach by way of the length of time to achieve a standard. Now, here's the problem when I talk about using the word standard, okay, by way of changing the perceptions of dogs in a intentional way, making sure you come out on the other side of a process with a predictable outcome. So again, when I talk about, bribery-based, systems of training, what that aligns with is this idea that training is a learning-based exercise with trainers who are jumping right into a relationship problem in terms of dogs that are already holding a level of control in the relationship, and even in terms of just where your starting point, okay, with a dog that is developing, okay, with a dog that is connecting, with a dog that has social needs. Understand the problems that are associated with a idea that you can motivate dogs to respond at the very beginning using typically treats. So again, this is a big kind of way forward for trainers. They'll use treats, they'll use other motivators. But the problem with that, understand that when you do that, then it shifts the focus, okay? It kind of takes the spotlight off of the owner the right way. And again, in terms of the owner's role, with how they're interacting with, how they're connecting at that level. So what it does is it removes the owner from the equation in such a way that it opens the door completely wide open for dogs to start to gain control in the relationship. And so again, when I talk about, timelines, okay, understand this all plays a role. In fact, in terms of a timeline of a bribery-based system, in terms of service dog training, you're looking at a year plus, okay, in terms of training. And so when you talk about training, understand by way of using treats, repetition. And so understand that you're still interacting with, okay, these dogs. I talk about the totality of the relationship. In fact, very, kind of a, interesting video I put out as part of the members area option. I talk about the human dynamic. I talk about, why it is that when you look at, I talk about predictable outcomes, and, for certain dogs that have a certain level of need, and that dynamic, playing off of individuals and their personality type, and then when you're interacting as part of the relationship, just in terms of the normal day-to-day interactions you're doing with a dog, and you're hitting a certain level, understand that there's no awareness as to what's really happening, okay? Understand there's no awareness as to, and this plays into this whole theme of, why is it that that dogs that I personally interact with, even though I'm using treats, which I don't, but say trainers that are using treats, they're successful with achieving a standard, but then say 60-70% of the owners that are going to them and adopting this same methodology, they're struggling and failing. And you're wondering, and then, okay, well, I don't understand, so must be something wrong with the dog. Okay, understand that's all part of this. Understand that, to really get to a level where you're going to bypass those problems, and you're going to make sure you come out on the other side in good shape, you want to adopt a interaction-based method. Understand that's the only way that you're going to avoid being confused, not understanding, blame shifting. All those problems are all associated with this idea of things. And understand that trainers don't even see it, okay? This is the confusion, is that they're so kind of like self-focused that they don't have the ability to kind of humble themselves and say, I'm going to look at this stuff, and if there's a problem, then I'm gonna make the trade-off. And I talk about that. But here's the thing, so understand, so when I talk about a timeline of a year plus for these other systems, it's hit and miss anyway. Even, you know, in terms of a timeline, whether you're even going to hit that standard to begin with, based on what you're in agreement with. So understand that that's a major problem. Now, getting back to the system of training, you know, and the pluses, okay, is number one, the most important thing of all is that this is a intentional interaction-based approach. So it's all about a standard. But then the timeline itself is reduced, okay? This is why I say you're looking at the 3 or 4 month process. So you still need the time, but understand there's no barriers, okay? It's not a hit and miss system, okay? It's a predictable, intentional system of training, which is absolutely critical. This system of training is built on asking the questions at the very beginning, years ago. Okay, what is a process? You know, what's the role of influence? What's the role of the owner? How is a dog's decision-making process governed to begin with, based on the social connection? And how do you establish a predictable outcome? All those questions are answered through this system. So my encouragement is, you know, when you talk about timelines, when you talk about anything, you have to default back to, okay, what is the method? Okay, what's the system? And again, if you're, you know, and I understand that the majority of systems out there, guess what? They all align with this, you know, I say bribery base, but that's essentially, you want to kind of reduce it down to what's the problem here. Well, there's a complete failure to consider, you know, the relationship side of things, understanding, okay, you know, connecting the dots between behavioral problems and perceptions of dogs, and this issue on top of this issue of control, influence. Those terms are totally being misrepresented, twisted, lost on these trainers who are totally sold out. I mean, absolutely turned over to and sold out to this idea. So to even have a conversation, forget it. I mean, understand that that's the problem. So my encouragement to anybody out there who's looking at the problems, you know, if you're a trainer and have like several years in, you're in much rougher shape to walk this back or to confront it than somebody brand new. Understand that that's really what it is, because, you know, if you don't say at the beginning, hey, you know what, the truth is the truth, I'm gonna, you know, whatever it is, I'm gonna accept it. That's very hard to do once you start to align yourself with this idea of things, because then the problem is that you start making the money and you get your business set up and you're putting your videos up and you're writing your books, and then look at the dog training world, it's a mess. So my encouragement is, if you have questions, check out my website. Lots of great information about not just the problem but the solution by way of a intentional interaction-based approach. Thanks for watching.